In today's episode, we're speaking to Alice Crawley. Alice is a well-respected authority in transformation who specializes in helping people release unhelpful and destructive patterns, beliefs, and behaviors to activate deep and lasting change in their lives and finances. A certified master coach, counselor, neuro-linguistic programming NLP practitioner, hypnotherapist, transformational specialist, Alice's work is founded on the principles of the power of quantum connection, the art and science of applying quantum focus, and heart-mind connection to unlock unlimited potential possibilities and prosperity. Her recent book has been accepted to become a movie, and she has many more accolades to her name. So let's speak to Alice and find out how she went from addiction to being a transformation coach and now going to have a movie in the pipeline. Let's speak to her, find out how she changed her life by changing her mindset. And if you want to upgrade your money mindset, click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and let's speak. Welcome. This is Gull Khan, your money mindset expert. And today I'm so excited. We have Alice Crawley. Welcome, Alice.
Hello, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming from all the way from Australia to us, so all the other end of the world to me. So it's morning for me and evening for Alice, actually. But Alice, everyone's heard your intro. Tell everybody what it is that you do.
Oh gosh, I do a range of things. One of the things that I'm most passionate about is sharing with people about the bounce back of my story. I recently released a book on the way to Wonderland, which was about my journey down a very deep, dark rabbit hole of addictions and financial hardship and an awful lot of financial overspending and shame that went with it. And I found myself, I had sort of done a manic traveling of the globe, lots of overspending. And after a number of near fatal overdoses, I hit a rock bottom emotionally, mentally, and financially, and found myself with a drug-fueled hangover on a beach in Australia. I had fled from Canada to try to get away from my money woes and my overspending and my need to compulsively fill the hole. And it finally caught up with me. And I had an extraordinary sort of low ebb and rock bottom, and then had an even more extraordinary bouncing off point from that when I started to learn about quantum healing and quantum energy and how it's possible to start to transform and change ourselves from the inside out within days, months, and even minutes. So that's the focus of what I do now, is helping others in the quantum transformation space.
Well, I'm so glad that we are talking today, because I think this Friday feature is all about that kind of a journey, that exact, journey where you go through your ups and downs and you get to the point where a lot of times rock bottom, and then you pull yourself back out. Then it's the universe way of teaching you certain skills and certain abilities, which then you go on to use to help others and help others in the journey. And I really do feel that a lot of the time when you go through your deepest, darkest moments, it's the universe training you to be the better version, to be your highest version of yourself, and to fulfill your life purpose. I really do believe that your deepest, darkest moments are there not to torture you, not to cause you the pain, but to give you the required skills to live your life's purpose. So let's start with that. So do you not originally come from Australia? Do you originally come from Canada?
I was born and raised in Canada, but I spent a lot of time traveling around the world. So I knew I was always fascinated by cultures. By different cultures, I spent time learning languages and doing trips to Europe when I was in high school, and I was privileged enough to have that as part of my education. After university, I went to live in Japan to learn Japanese and study with ancient healing practitioners and learn more about Taoist and Buddhist practices in Japan, and studying Aikido. And like you, I had a very deep belief from very early on, Gull, that there were two sides of my story. And it's so interesting. I remember things happening to me that were very painful and confusing, even when I was younger. But I always had this sense that the flip side of the ledger was going to be, I'm going through this because this is to be shared with someone else. And to me, I absolutely, I think we're very aligned with that philosophy. And that's always been the great balancer for me, that no matter how painful or confusing or difficult it gets, I know it's going to be a bouncing off point for something extraordinary. And
100%,
that's,
100%.
all of those, the difficulties, the challenges that I may have had, the connections that I didn't have, the love or the safety that I didn't have when I was growing up, I can now see is totally balanced out by all the extraordinary people that I attracted into my experience and soul family. And I'm so honored and privileged that we're having an open conversation about this, because, in terms of the ups and downs and going through financial challenges, I still think there's a lot of shame and stigma and secrecy around issues around money, that there's this sense people think, we have to have it all together. But I know that my truth was that I was a highly successful corporate worker on the outside, but I was completely out of control with money because I didn't value myself. And I hadn't been taught healthy money patterns. I had some really toxic and dysfunctional habits and behaviors with money, which it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom and made the decision, right, I am paying down this debt. And I did pay down that debt in just under the goal that I intended. I said, I'm paying it down in 5 years. And I did that. And a part of that was I had to face into feelings of low self-worth when it came to increasing my net worth. And I know I've seen, work and listened to podcasts and conversations and a lot of stuff you've said. And I think we're very aligned on that it really comes down to how much we love and appreciate and value ourselves. And once we nail that, it starts to shift things with our money and our external environment.
100%, 100%. I think this is one of the most important things that we need to understand, is our net worth is determined by our self-worth. And if we are not, even if we make a lot of money, that doesn't add to your net worth, because if you don't keep it, it doesn't add to your net worth, simple as that. So even really high income earners fall into this trap, and they think they're making a lot of money, and but they somehow self-sabotage. Now, I'm going to add a bit of this is what I've learned over the years is from my own personal experience. So you can work on your self-worth, and you can go ahead and really start attracting money and start becoming wealthy. But there's a bit of a twist to this. It's a universal thing, and a twist to it. If you're an entrepreneur and you're a serious entrepreneur like Elon Musk and one of these people, you will literally, my own experience, you will go through those ups and downs and you think, oh my God, I've got money sorted. No, you have, but the universe will test you. So every time you're going to up level, the universe will test you. And I've had this in my own life. Oh shoot, I'm a money person. I attract money very easily. What happened to me? And I've literally got myself in situations where I'm scratching my head like, I don't have much money unless I go into SIPs and other things, which I refuse to do. So I don't touch a pension pot. Somehow even the safety net that I so-called I've built up, it's gone. What's happened? So just want to add that bit. So when you move away from that survival mode and you go into this and thriving, but especially if you go into the entrepreneurial energy, we somehow as entrepreneurs just like to take big risks, and with risks come those downfalls at times. But you always, I always say that if you have a positive mindset, if you have a really healthy, great money mindset, you're never poor, you're just broke. You're temporarily broke. And so for those of you thinking, well, that maybe that's a problem, I still don't have self-worth. There's times when you will have to distinguish between working on yourself and realizing it's part of the journey. So I just wanted to add that to about this moment, because I know that a lot of people will say, oh, I can never work on this. This is not working for me. And especially if they're entrepreneurs, you're going to have those moments when you are you're not poor, you're going to be broke. It's fine. It's okay. It's part of the process. It's how you upgrade at times. So
And Gull, I love that you've said that, because you know what I often talk about is I'll often speak to people about financial addictions or compulsive spending habits, because that's something that I'm, you know, in my book I talk about being a professional addict multidimensionally, right? Which means that you know, yeah, like I have to be very, very vigilant about how, you know, how I spend my money, and I will talk about financial recovery in the same way that, you know, some of us need to go on that path of recovery from drugs or alcohol or food or whatever it is. It's not a linear journey. It's not
No.
linear. And I think that this is, and that was one of my great, and I completely agree. And I love that you've said that. And it's so important for, as you say, especially the enterprising and entrepreneurial among us, we tend to be quite financially excited at times, and we're risk takers. And that's it's a tricky balancing act. And I know that because I'm married to an actuary, and he's very risk adverse, right? So there's always a very healthy tension of the opposites in the home, and it can be a little bit intense sometimes. But that's the reality. And I think you're right. There's times where we might be broke, but we're not poor. and it's so great to be reminded of those ups and downs, because I know that even when I was releasing the book and there was money I invested into getting it printed, and I could, here I was talking about, I want to strip the stigma and the shame away, you know, around money anxiety. And here I was thinking, how can I release this book talking about, you know, financial transformation, where I'm still grappling with, you know, revenue streams and how much I want to be coming in from where. The reality is, it's an ongoing journey. And so I'm all about, let's have an open, real conversation, because I think we live in this 21st century where everybody's comparing shiny show reels about how amazing they're doing. And it's really eroding people's confidence and, you know, sense of self. The reality is that if we share in a very real way behind the scenes what's happening, I know very few, if I don't know if I know any entrepreneurs that haven't been through some very big booms and busts. And it's and, you know, not advocating for that dramatic roller coaster approach,
but it's part of the journey. That's the whole point.
Journey.
And
that's
pick
exactly
up
it.
Any entrepreneur. I mean, this is what gives me solace at times. Like, it's okay, it's all is well, you're among good company.
Yes.
So it's any entrepreneur that you admire, that you think is done well and has, you know, it looks like they've done overnight success. They haven't. They've been through enough rock bottoms to be able to finally break through the glass ceiling and hit that mega stardom.
And Gull, I love that you said that, because it's so interesting. I mean, I feel absolutely, you know, deeply humbled and privileged and honored that the book's been picked up. They're making a movie about this, which is very exciting. You know, but people are like, this is incredible, and you know, this has happened and it's moving so quickly. And I'm going, so quickly? You know, I've been on this journey of like this financial recovering from hardship for, this has been like 20 years in the making. It's been, you know, and it was, you know, 10 years ago, I probably started on the journey of writing a book, and there was one manuscript, and then that all fell over and I had to start again. And I think it's so important. And I love that you're drawing that out, because we do need to share about all the failures that we have before we find the success. And I think that's the risk sometimes of the, you know, arguably pretty digitally addicted and superficial world that we're living in sometimes, is that there's this myth that, wow, you know, if you get all your digital marketing right and you find just the right course and everything, you'll launch and you'll be, you know, and sure, there are some anomalies out there of overnight success, but most people I know have worked hard, and there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's certainly my story.
Agreed. And same here. And every time you go into different fields, so you take a different risk. So recently, I've been diversifying and going to complete different fields, from coaching and even property, which are my two main areas. And I have, all my days, there's been a sharp learning curve, and I have fumbled, and you know, one deal fell through after 9 months. Second one recently, at the moment, was literally final stages, SPAs exchanging, we were looking to exchange, and it literally looks like as it's falling through, it's on a pause at the moment. So if it works through, it works through, but I've heavily invested in that. And if I walk away, I will be at at a good financial loss. But I was speaking to someone yesterday, and I said, look, this has been one of the biggest lessons I've had. It's a very expensive lesson, but I'm not sad about it. So if the worst case scenario happens and we don't go through with this, I know exactly what to do, and it's made me more determined to go ahead and create this, this business in this industry. And instead of being deterred by it, and this is the mark of a true entrepreneur, instead of being deterred by it, when the world hits you, you come back and hit harder. That's the motto that I have. And so every time you supposedly fail, I think it's a massive lesson that you've learned, and you can capitalize on that and go ahead and come back with such brutal force that you knock everyone's socks off. And I sometimes feel that by the time I come onto the world stage, I'm quite hidden. When I come to the world stage, I will be labeled, oh, she became an overnight success, and nobody's going to see all the heartaches, all the cries, and all the painful situations that I've been through. But it'd be like you, yeah. Oh, you became, your books are picked up, and you're going to become this. There's been made movies going to be made out of it. So, oh my God, you're so, you're doing so well, and you're so lucky. Really? 20 years of heartache, and I'm still lucky.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I think it really is more important than ever that we're having this conversation about that, how much goes into being successful, and how much it takes to bounce back. And I love what you're saying about, because I 100% agree that everything we endure, everything we go through is part of, it builds our, it strengthens our spirit. It strengthens our spirit. I mean, my Aikido sensei, and I get shivers when I think of it, his motto would always be, see to it that your spirit is never broken. And that was his philosophy around no matter what, when you're out there, see to it that your spirit is never broken. And that stayed with me. It stayed with me. And there are days when, oh yeah, I've been, at low and low ebbs, and even more recently, like I said, a real roller coaster of a journey. And as you say, when you choose this life of adventure, when you choose a life of taking risks, and following your heart and doing what you really want to do, it takes a lot of courage. You build resilience in that process, but it's a deeply humbling process. There's a beautiful man that I work with, my recovering monk friend, as I call him, Kamal, he was a monk, and then he became a venture capitalist, and then wrote a book about mental resilience. He's a wonderful character. But I remember him saying to me years ago, when I was launching on another adventure, and as usual, as most entrepreneurs, multiple irons in the fire, was feeling maxed out and stressed out. And he said, make no mistake, the entrepreneurial journey is a deeply spiritual one, because your ego will be smashed.
Oh, 100 times.
And
100 times. And you will doubt yourself so much. You're like, am I really that stupid? Am I really that dumb? No, I'm not. I'm supposed to be clever. I'm clever. I'm sure I'm clever. I look like I'm clever.
Exactly. And I think it's that, to your point, that you come back stronger, you do come back stronger, and you also come back clearer. And I think that often, what I like to, or, I choose to believe about the very, the hard, the hard and difficult falls I've had down the rabbit hole, and there have been many of them, they are always a bouncing off point for something so much more magnificent. Because I come back from there, and as I say, there's different variations of it that have happened very recently, where I find myself in a state of an overwhelm, about a situation where I haven't put a boundary in place, whatever's, happened with my business risk, where it's like, I don't want to be in that situation again. And now I know. And now Alice. So it's, fall down 7 times and get up 8, as they say in Japan. You keep getting up, and you keep getting up, and you keep getting up. And the other samurai motto that I love from Japan is, they would say, expect nothing and be prepared for anything. I quite like that one, But it really, it's good to, because it does ask a lot of us being entrepreneurs. And I think that, well, my husband's very sensible about these things. He's like, look, if it was that easy to make million, everybody would be doing it. But the reason not everyone's doing it is because it's, to use a very Aussie term, it's hard yakka.
Yeah.
It's hard yakka. It's hard work.
It is. It is. So talk us through some of your deepest, darkest moments. What was it what would you say was your lowest moment, and how do you turn that around? Because the motto of this podcast, or this segment anyway, is how they change their life by changing their mindset. So talk us through one of your lowest moments.
So, there were quite a few of them. I would say that when I think about that, that very low ebb I had with a drug-fueled hangover back in 2004, and this was shortly before I admitted to my now husband, my boyfriend at the time I was living with, that I needed to check into rehab. So I was at the height of my drug and alcohol addiction. I was taking about $5,000 worth of meth a month, and getting cash advances on my credit card. It was so out of control. And I had my boyfriend at the time didn't even know how much debt I was in. And so not only was there all this secrecy around the drugs and the alcohol, he had no idea that I had $185,000 US debt. Yeah. So $100,000 I'd racked up in North America, and then $85,000 in Australia. Now, when I set off that hand grenade in the living room, you can imagine, it was really confronting. And I think that I feel profoundly grateful for it now, but at the time it was excruciating. And as I said, my now husband, Martin, he was straight up with me and said, look, I'm happy to walk with you shoulder to shoulder on this journey, but I'm not going to bail you out, and you've got to get clean. Like, you've basically got to get your shit together, because I don't go that low. I'm not going down that path with you. And he refused to bail me out. And I was like, and basically he sort of, it was an ultimatum effectively. He's like, you get it together, you go to rehab, we've got a chance. Otherwise, that's it. And that was tough. That was really, really tough. And I remember sitting, in the balance for about 24 hours, because I said, you don't understand what you're asking me to do. And he said, oh, I understand exactly what I'm asking you to do. And I said, I need to think about it. And he's like, great, you got 24 hours. So that was a really dark night of the soul. And it was incredible, though, the clarity. I surrendered so deeply. I was in so much pain. I was on my knees on every level. I was like, I don't know how I can do this. I don't know how I can survive through rehab. I've got all this debt. I just don't even know where to start. And it was that moment. It was that incredible moment of being so overwhelmed, but knowing that I absolutely had to surrender and let go, and trust that I had been given an opportunity to do things differently. So even though it felt like the lowest of low ebb, I thought, hang on, there's somebody here, a shining light saying you are worth more than this, but you need to step up and you need to do it. I knew I had to make that decision. It was a really big turning point. And he knew what he was asking me to do. I mean, it was huge. I had been medicating myself with drugs and alcohol and food and spending my entire life. I had never properly faced into my trauma. And little did I know that my trauma was going to turn out to be one of my greatest gifts, because it empowered me to tap into that deep empathy and that care, and learn to love myself through all of that pain and trauma, and then be there for others. But that one of my favorite expressions of Thomas Fuller that I reference in the book is that it's always darkest before dawn. And I always get emotional when I say that. I still get emotional, because that's always been my truth, is that when you have those really dark moments, that's when you have an opportunity to surrender. You've got an opportunity to offer it up and do it differently. And it's so painful in those moments, because you just think that I've, pardon my French, I've fucked it up, like I've completely screwed up. But that's the beautiful moment of surrender, where you go, you know what, universe, show me how to do it better.
And I'm getting emotional when you say this as well.
When you do that, that's when the miracle happens, right? And you know this as much as I do doing this sort of work. That's when the miracle happens, when you go, okay, the way that I've been doing it, controlling it and trying to manage and everything, that's not working. That's when you have to invite divine energy into your experience and say, okay, help me flow with this. help me see a better perspective on this, because the way in that pit of suffering, that's when we know we're not seeing our true selves. And that's when we know we're not tapped into our true selves, is when we feel that low, when we feel that worthless. It means we're blocking ourselves from our true divine light.
100%,
So
100%. And when you were saying this, I really want to second that. You and I also want you to understand that your resilience, your perseverance, your determination will be tested at every single level. Every time you up level, you think you've hit the bottom. Things can't get any worse. You probably think things will have to get better, and you hit the next level up, and you're like, oh my god, right? I didn't think things would get any worse. How did this happen? How did I end up here again? And this will happen multiple times. And I have a similar, we also have a similar thing in our culture, that the night is darkest just before dawn. But also we have a saying that in order for gold to get to its purest form, it's put through fire. So you have impure gold when you first take out the ore, but when the kind of gold that's put in shops and which is actually sold, and the purest form would go through the deepest, darkest pit of fire. So when you are going through the fire, your impurities are being taken out, and your pure version of you, the highest version of you, is being blossomed into reality. And that is what that's what shines actually in the world. That's what brings light to the world. But in order for that to happen, you have to go into the pit, which is dark. It's awful, it's painful, and you burn. You're literally burning, and that's a metaphor, but that's literally what happens. And you find that every time you want to level up, you have to go through the experience again. You get isolated from people, you feel alone. And an entrepreneur's journey, by the way, is a very lonely journey. Let's be very clear about it. It's such a lonely journey. I mean, I get to speak to people like you, which is amazing, and that's why I love these conversations. But the people around me have no clue of what I'm going through. They think I'm mad. They think I'm crazy for what I do. They're, why would you do that? Of course they're going to fail. Of course it's going to happen. Of course it's your fault, right? Why, you're so sensible. Why would you take a stupid risk? It's not a stupid risk. It's a risk. It's a calculated risk, but it's still a risk. And sometimes it plans out, sometimes it doesn't, right? But it's a journey that no one else can understand for you. And so, even if you are with lots of lovely, amazing people around you, you still feel alone. And it's you. And at the core of it, like you just said, it's just you and your God or universe, whoever you are surrendered to. And you have to allow them to show you what to do. And there are times when you think, really? Seriously? Again? Already? Oh my God. Right? But you do come out the other end. And this is why if anybody listens to this podcast at the moment and they're going through that deep, dark journey, rest assured the light is there. I actually heard a funny meme recently. Said, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the guy goes, well, why is the light at the end of the tunnel? Who put the light at the end of the tunnel? We need it at the beginning of the tunnel. We don't need it at the end of the tunnel. Once we're out of the tunnel, we don't need the light anymore. What the hell is this? And you may feel like that. You may think, what the hell? I need some kind of sign. I need some kind of, give me some sign. Give me something. Give me something. But if you are really strong, or the universe thinks they're going to make you very, very strong, sometimes you don't even have the signs. You have to walk with faith. And I don't think enough people talk about that. There are times when there are no signs, there's no help, there's nothing, and you have to walk in faith. And that's when faith really comes in. But if you can walk in faith, the rewards are unbelievable, wouldn't you say?
I 100% agree, Gull. And I think the word, I think of it in terms of trust and faith, trust, but trusting the universal divine plan. And when I'm in those moments of overwhelm, when in doubt, zoom out, when I'm really losing my shit about what's going on, I take that time to close my eyes, pull back, think about the 30.8 billion years of galaxies that have been created. And think about, the fact that we can only measure our finite human tools can only measure to about 15 billion galaxies, of which they estimate there might be another 15 billion galaxies within each of those, right? Like,
of course, yeah.
It's beyond.
Yeah, it's without even thinking about the multiverse, without thinking about multiple dimensions, without even thinking about multiple realities. Let's not even go there. That's just a whole new conversation. But yeah.
100%. And that point about the multiple universes, I mean, this is when I started getting in, deep into the quantum theory and mechanics and healing and transformation, and people like Deepak Chopra. But I'm fascinated with people like Brian Cox, astrophysicists who have worked with the likes of Stephen Hawking. We went to see him at the State Theatre, and we were talking about quantum mechanics and these principles that are now being proven at universities by medical scientists, researchers at Stanford and Harvard. We have evidence, we have medical evidence that through the power of our mind and heart connection, we can change our physical reality. We know that this is a physical fact. We know that when we match our intention with an elevated emotion, physical reality responds, because they're doing experiments on this. And Brian Cox, this heavy-hitting ex-rock star astrophysicist, when asked the question about his thoughts about quantum mechanics and quantum theory and whether it was real, he said it's widely accepted as being valid by most astrophysicists. What we don't understand is why more people aren't using this technology and this knowledge to improve their lives. Because, and I was like, oh, here's like, it's one thing, because I think that the conversation's changing, Gull. Like, I think it's been changing over the past 5 to 10 years. It used to be that energy was very woo-woo. Now, finally, we're starting to get scientific professionals. We're getting engineers. We're getting people from, I guess, credible, academic background saying, this is real. This is absolutely real, that we can change our physical reality. We can change our fiscal reality. We can change all of that with the power of our heart and our mind. To your point, though, we must trust. And the challenge with that, and that's when we tap into the flow, and that's when we tap into that source of energy that's going to bring us the money that we desire, right? And help us hold on to the money that we desire. But we do have to trust. And I think that the dance that we all do, or the tightrope with this, the balance between intention and surrender, is that when things are going off the rails, or when we're feeling, afraid or anxious or overwhelmed, of course, the tendency is to want to control. That's the normal primal reaction. It's a nervous system reaction, like it's biochemical. We want to go into fear, we want to go into control. But the minute we start going into a fearful mind state, it becomes a scarcity mindset. And we're blocking the flow of abundance. So it's that fine line of going, okay, so I'm going through a difficult period, having to allow the emotions, channel the emotions in whatever healthy way we do, make sure we're not repressing or suppressing them, let it all out, and then reset and recommit to our intention and walk that path with trust and surrender. And that's not an easy balance, and particularly in the kind of world we live in, right? The kind of world we live in, it's not designed for trust and surrender, is it?
No, there's a lot of fear mongering going on. So people are taught at an early age to fear the unknown. And this is unfortunately how we are. But okay, on that note, we're going to wrap this up now. So tell us, what's your parting, what would be your parting advice to people listening to you today and thinking, well, Alice, you got lucky and you pulled yourself out. I don't know if there's a, light in the tunnel for me. I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I have the faith. What would you say to someone who's in despair at the moment, and maybe in their deepest, darkest moments, and it may be they feel like, oh, things can't get any worse, things can't get any darker, and guess what? It gets darker. So what would you advise someone like that? What would you say to them when they are going through this testing time from the universe? And I just want to add something to this, something that I say a lot to people, but it comes from my holy book, the Quran, because I'm Muslim. It says in the Quran quite clearly that God will not test you beyond your capacity. Yeah. And I would like to say in secular terms, the universe will not put a burden on you greater than you can handle. You may not know your strengths, you may not know who you are, but the universe knows who you are because you've been created from it. And therefore, when you are put under a burden, the burden is within your capacity, not beyond your capacity, because otherwise you would not be there. The universe won't allow that to happen. So what would you say to someone who's actually going through that, experiencing that right now?
It's a great question, Gull. And I would say the first thing I would say is please know that you're not alone. Please know that you're not alone, because that to me is, and I get emotional too, because I just know the number of times that I've been in the darkest of dark pits, that is so comforting to know that for all of us, that unconditional, endless love and light is there. And for whatever you are going through, there is somebody that understands what it's like to be in that painful place. And it's been those people that have had the darkest of dark hours that have helped pull me into the light. And it starts with that first step of trusting that no matter what is going on, no matter how low you feel, how dark it is, you are loved and you are safe, and it's possible to reach out for help, and that you're worth help. And that's what I really want people to know, is that no matter where they are or what's going on, they are worthy of so much more, and that we are in fact far more than we can see of ourselves in those moments. And it's hard to see it when you're in it, but I really believe that saviors are people that remind you of who you really are when you've forgotten. You know, and that the people that have saved me and brought me back from the brink every time are the people that have been there to say, hey, you've temporarily lost sight, Alice. You've temporarily lost sight. In those dark moments, that's all it is. It feels real. We feel worthless. We feel small. We feel diminished. We feel discouraged or disenchanted or dejected. But from that, we will burn all of those painful emotions and memories and processes and patterns and behaviors, exactly as you said with the gold. All of that will be burned for something so pure and bright and beautiful, it's impossible to even see it from where we are now.
Fantastic. So tell us, Alice, where can we connect with you on the internet?
Go to alicecrawley.com. So if you go to alicecrawley.com, you'll see I've got my On the Way to Wonderland book, which is available. I've also got podcasts through the Looking Glass, where I chat with people about surfing the anxieties and addictions of the 21st century. And so and you can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook. But I would say go to alicecrawley.com and you can I've also got some toolkits in there. I offer free journals, meditations, visualizations, and all of them amazing tools and techniques that help me come back from a very, very deep, dark place that I genuinely never knew that I was going to come back from. So no matter where you are, it's really important to know that other people have been to those difficult places, and it's possible. It's more than possible to bounce back. If I can do it, truly anybody can.
Wonderful. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, the links for Alice would be on the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then down below in the description section, we'll have the links that Alice just mentioned. Check her out. She sounds, and she is an amazing woman, and she's even more amazing from the conversation we had, from the experiences I've just gotten in depth of. But I'll check out her book too, which is, I believe, has now been taken up to be made a film. So see how she can help you and do connect with her. Well, thank you so much for coming today on Friday Feature, Alice. We have to continue this conversation, and we will so in Money Talkies. But for today, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to be here. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to me and Alice today on Friday Feature. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.